Okay, we've done the non-spoiler review for Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Now it's time to dive deep into the spoilers. This one is chock full of all kinds of spoiler goodness, so there's a lot that I couldn't divulge in the non-spoiler review. So anyway, let's go. What's up, guys? Time for a nice laid-back discussion about Fear Street Part 2, 1978. I was going through a lot of my comments today in the non-spoiler review, and from what I gathered, it seemed like most people loved this particular movie over the first movie. There were even some people that said they almost hated the first movie, but they ended up loving this movie, and I had a feeling that's the way it was going to go. This was, I think, the much more accessible movie out of the two. I still love the first movie, but it definitely had its problems. But this one, I think, was a little stronger in the character department. And don't get me wrong, I love the characters from 1994. But I feel like the characters in 78 were fleshed out a lot better. So diving in, the beginning, you have our characters from 94, Dina and Sam. Well, you know, the end, Dina was stabbed with the knife by Sam, which was a shocker at the end of that episode. And so, the beginning of this movie, she goes to what's referred to as C, which I called her Christine, but C. Berman. And a quick little side note on that, one of my patrons actually reached out to me and said, you kind of spoiled the twist on which sister actually ended up dying at the end. And I stated that I don't think I did, because I referred to her as Christine, and in the movie, it's actually Cindy and Ziggy, and it's Ziggy that ends up being C. Berman from the beginning of the movie. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on this, if I did spoil that for you guys in the non-spoiler review, but I don't think I did, just because this character went by a completely different name in the 94 version, which was intentional. So I was a little confused on that, but I don't think I spoiled that for anybody. I don't like spoiling anything unless I intentionally do it. But this is a great way to connect 94 to 78, because it makes it a flashback. You know, she tells them about the experience that she had in 1978. And so we talked about the sisters Ziggy and Cindy and how different, almost polar opposites they are. One is completely upfront about everything that she's feeling in your face, and then the other, Cindy, much more restrained and just kind of holds everything close to the vest. She chooses to ignore the problems, hoping they'll go away. But Cindy is dating this guy, Tommy. And by the way, Tommy, it must have been like a reference to maybe Tommy Jarvis. Alice also, I think, is a reference to Friday the 13th. There's a lot of names in here that kind of jumped out at me as like little winks and nods to the Friday franchise. But Tommy's her squeaky clean boyfriend. And of course, he is the one that becomes the Nightwing Killer. A lot of you guys picked up on that. I didn't really pick up on it. I was wondering who's going to be the Nightwing Killer. Like, this is the inception of the Nightwing Killer, how he becomes the Nightwing Killer. And so I knew that one of these campers would end up doing it, or he would show up somewhere. I didn't know how it was going to go, actually. But it was cool to experience Tommy actually becoming the Nightwing Killer. Tommy comes upon Mary Lane, who is the mother of Ruby Lane, which was one of the killers in 1994 that we saw, which is one of my favorite killers too, actually. I even pinned a comment on my non-spoiler review that I want a movie with Ruby Lane. This character is so interesting because she literally like sings as she's killing her victims, and we don't see her until the end of this movie, which we'll get to that. But Tommy, he has a run-in with Mary Lane, and he finds the map. I guess Mary had this map to Sarah Fier's, I guess, like evil dungeon, which was located like below the outhouse. And so he goes down there with Alice and her boyfriend and Cindy. And so for the rest of this movie, it's them together, this group. And then you have Ziggy and Nick Good, who at this time is a fresh camp counselor, but he would eventually become the sheriff of Shadyside in 1994. But as far as like digging into the lore of Sarah Fier and maybe like linking back to 1666, I think this movie does it even better than 1994, especially when we get down into like, you know, the evil cult dungeon is what I'd like to call it, with Alice and Cindy and the two guys. This is where Tommy ends up becoming the Nightwing Killer. One thing that was really cool too is when they find that stone that has like all the killer's names on it, and when somebody becomes a killer, their name automatically appears on the stone, and so you see Tommy's name appear when he becomes the killer. Also, I loved how he didn't have the mask on for most of the movie. He ends up getting the potato sack mask at the end when he's in the middle of, chasing one of the victims. And that scene's just really cool. He looks badass. And really, this is like the Nightwing slasher movie. So I guess we don't really need another Nightwing killer movie, but it was really cool to see his birth. Also, a word on Alice, because at the beginning of the movie, I was kind of annoyed by Alice. She was a little bit too wild, I guess. I guess I could compare her to maybe the Tina of Halloween 5. I was kind of annoyed with her at first, but they give this character a really interesting arc, and there's this moment where her and Cindy are having this like heart-to-heart talk, and we find out that Alice really just has this tough exterior that's kind of like a shield, and she holds a lot of her emotions back, and she used to cut herself and all this stuff, and she ends up being a really cool person actually, and I love that about the character. I like a good character arc in any movie, not just a slasher movie. And so her and Cindy, they have, I guess, kind of this like therapeutic trade-off. And so anyway, they're trying to figure out how to end the Sarah Fear curse. Alice eventually finds the hand, and she figures out that if you bury the hand, you can kill the curse, or that's what she's thinking at the time anyway. And by the way, talking to a friend, I actually found out that Sarah Fear is actually in the books. I didn't think she was in the books. And these movies are very loosely based around the books, but a lot of these characters, I guess a couple of the characters, are actually in the books, including Sarah Fear, and of course Nick Good. But eventually Alice ends up getting attacked by her boyfriend Tommy, which that's an emotional thing. That's kind of like your Evil Dead tied to this too, because you're having to kill somebody that you love. And she had to watch her boyfriend, not Tommy, but the other guy that she was with, she had to watch him die. And then Cindy is in a situation where she has to kill her boyfriend. Again, it's kind of like Evil Dead. But Alice ends up getting killed, and I guess that's our first like shocking character death of the movie. Remember, in the previous movie, we had a couple of deaths that nobody saw coming. I think this one is that to a lesser extent, but still, there are a couple of shocking character moments, and we'll get to the ending. But speaking of having to kill your own boyfriend, Cindy ends up decapitating Tommy, but that doesn't kill him, because he I guess he's like a Sarah Fearite. I guess that's what I would call it. He's like a Deadite, pretty much. But you have to end the curse to kill the killer. That makes them that much more dangerous. These aren't normal slasher killers. They're like supernatural, like Michael Myers, But even if you chop their head off, they still live. So it's even worse. So anyway, jumping to the ending, Ziggy and Cindy are back together. They are violently, and I mean violently, killed by two of the killers. Cindy by an axe from her own boyfriend, and then Ziggy, one of the other killers, gets her with a knife. So Nick ends up bringing her back to life, and we find out that in fact is who Christine Berman is. She was Ziggy. And the whole time you're thinking she's Cindy, because one, and two, Cindy looks more like the 1994 version of the character. So that was a gut punch. But then we jump back to 1994 because we're not done yet, and Dina ends up going back to the mall where she finds the hand, because she figures out if you bury the hand with the body, then she can defeat Sarah Fear. And really cool scene at the end, because when she does that, she can literally see Sarah Fear's journey and how she was killed back in 1666. And then this is where we get our, I guess, Back to the Future 3 style, what's to come with 1666. And it looks really good. And this one's probably going to take a different road, because this is the beginning of it. So there's probably going to be a lot more like witchcraft type stuff and maybe less slasher type stuff. I don't know. We'll see. But man, I'm really looking forward to it. Firing on all cylinders so far with these. I love both movies. Are you looking forward to 1666? Let me know down in the comments. I've given both these a Trapped on an Island. Keeping that rating, I did like 78 a little bit more than I liked 94, but I still like 94 quite a bit. And I do think the music is handled better in 78 as well. It's not as just thrown together. And I knew that we'd hear Don't Fear the Reaper. I just knew it. So anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on 78. Any spoilers that I missed in there, like big ones. I know Gary, the character, was killed. The guy that played in Halloween 2018. I'm pretty much thinking that everything he plays in, he's going to get violently killed. You know, he's going to be the new Steve Buscemi, even though I call him the discount Foggy Nelson. But anyway, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.